Testing, testing. Okay. Y'all gotta check this shit out. Hold on. Check this shit out. This is the very beginning. A lot of this is hard coded in at the moment, but it works. Even more fun. Check this out. Ouch. That hurt. What happens if I stupidly walk back over it? Oh no. Game over. And now I have no choice because I don't have a fucking game over loop, so we have to quit and restart the game. So there's a lot going on here. This looks very simple, but this is many different proof of concept pieces integrated together that we now have to go back and generalize so that we can start piecing together a more intelligent dungeon generation system. It's very good that I have characters. They walk around. I've got an NPC. I can even spawn more than one NPC. And I'm starting to get very basic turn by turn logic integrated. The the NPC actually is said to follow the player kind of in a very rudimentary fashion, but when it gets next to the player, it will attempt to attack the player. So like if I were to move down, he moves one step closer. Let's say I bump into the wall again, he attacks me. Let's say I bump into the wall again, he attacks me again. Let's say, now here's the problem with this situation, and this is actually kind of like a gameplay control situation that I want to upgrade. Like in a traditional dungeon crawler like NetHack or Sheeran, for instance, and really it's not as big of a deal in NetHack because there's no like perceptible direction that you're facing. Whereas with like Sheeran, you have all these different directions that you can face, such as like we can in my game. But you have to be able to like turn, right? Like you have to be able to set the character's position. And it's a question of, does turning actually, like if you need to like change which direction that you're facing, should that consume one turn? Should that be like something that like takes one action? Because moving obviously takes an action, right? And now I'm facing this other wall. But like what if I wanted to like spin around and immediately attack the enemy so I don't die, right? At the moment that's impossible because I don't have that integrated into the game. But I think it's reasonable to think that, you know, if I'm in this situation right here and I'm facing the wall, I should be able to turn back around and immediately attack the bad guy, right? Like I shouldn't be penalized for facing the wrong direction like this. There might be other situations where that's different, but building a small thing to allow the player to like turn around is a good goal for today too. Because obviously I'm not going to be able to finish all of the dungeon generation stuff in one go. But it's all about the small pieces. And for what we do have, a lot of it needs to be cleaned up and made better. It works. So let me bump into this wall and I'm dead. So this has been fun so far. one of the things I wanted to do first, let's take a look at the way that I'm creating that room, right? So this room, I've like hard. I mean, it's not really hard coding, but it's kind of hard coding. Like in the initialization function for the dungeon, I have two loop. No, I have like two or three or four. Fuck, I have some loops, and these loops go through and place tile by tile each of these walls. And I told it to, I have like a couple integer parameters that I use, but like that code could go into a function, right? And when I talk about good coding practices, this is the kind of thing I talk about. It's like even in the practical workplace, even when I've like worked real software engineering jobs and shit, like even when I was doing homework assignments in computer science class, it's all the same to me, right? It's like step one, just get the fucking thing to like give you the correct answer, like to make it do what you want, right? And step two, to go back and clean up the code so that it's more proper. In other words, in situations where you have hard coded like real numbers, for instance, usually these can be pulled out. Like if you've hard coded a number that's being passed into a function call, then you might want to pull that out into its own variable and then pass that variable instead, right? And then you can even take it a step further. And if this is code inside of another function, perhaps that variable could be a parameter that's being passed into the function from another location. Because ultimately, you want these things to kind of filter in a top down fashion. So, like, as an example of this, the code to actually create that room is right here. It's four loops. And this could probably be, done in a different way, right? But like everything from here to here is essentially like hard coded code as far as I'm concerned. This is something that I just got in there as an experiment to see if it would work. So like what does it look like without this? Right? Like what was my thought process going in? So there's the dungeon as it's being generated without that room, right? And honestly, the switch shouldn't even be there anymore because the whole point is that I shouldn't be able to like as a intermediary between like the player and the algorithm understand that like switches can't go onto like the floor. Maybe they could, but like I would want to like maybe use a different graphic to represent it or something. But ultimately, this is supposed to be a switch that's on a wall tile. And if there's no wall to put the switch on, there should be there should be none of that. And not to mention the spike tile floor that it was wired to doesn't exist anymore either. So like I should have code that checks to see if attempting to put down this switch is a valid move. And if it's not valid, then we should reject it. And hey baby doll, you just wake up? Princess is awakened. And it's just about time for us to do some business. I've introduced y'all to where I am in the development process. Let's take a little short reprieve, collect ourselves, get ready for this code cleanup. Because getting things, from where we are now to like the next major checkpoint, wherever that is like there's going to be a good amount of lifting that we have to do. Not to mention, I'm going to be moving like in the next week. So fun times ahead. New place, new dig, new game. Put on some music for you guys, and I will be right back. Check this out. I got some cool. I don't know how y'all like this font. I like it. I think I like it. Um, Okay. All right, let's go. Anyone in the chat? What's good, everybody? All right. So right, so pulling this all back in. We have this code that actually creates kind of a room, right? So down here we've got some code that like sets a particular tile to be a certain tile, and in this case, a spike trap tile that's been turned on so that the spikes are actually outward facing. If I comment out these 3 lines and we run the game again, now I get a room with no exit, so there's no way for the player to leave, which, you know, is kind of a nice thing. Um, and the switch does nothing that we can do anything about, so, you know, it is what it is. But important note here is that the code for the room generation is everything from here to here, right? So we can actually just copy this code, come down here, and immediately start writing a new function. I've decided that future function names in the dungeon floor context are going to begin with df. So all dungeon floor functions or functions that operate on dungeon floors will begin with df. All previously began with dungeon floor, which is kind of a much longer word to type, and at the time I was thinking copilot is just handling everything for me. But now that I understand LLMs better, I better understand how to structure my code so that I can minimize context, or I can minimize token usage. So now we want to actually take this code that represents creating like a room or drawing a perimeter. You can see it automatically like generated a lot of that stuff for us because it is patterning itself off of everything else that I've written. So if you start writing things in a certain way, it takes great advantage of the LLM itself. So now we have a tile or a set parameter function. We drop it off in dungeonfloor.h. Now we can actually call it by commenting out what we got here. And we can actually just call df set tile parameter for df. Or actually in this case it's called floor. Type is going to be dungeon tile type stone wall. X is going to be 0, y is going to be 0, w is going to be 14 like it was previously, and h is going to be 5. And as you can see, we have the same effect. My dog's eating some ice cream and she knocked her cup over and couldn't find it. I had to help her out. So So now that we know that works, we can actually just get rid of this big old loop that we had. Now our function, our init code is that much cleaner. Um, so that's a good thing. Because we're not returning explicit error codes, one of the patterns I was kind of informed about and a lot of the things that the LLM's been doing is, I've been returning error for a lot of stuff, but, we can really kind of omit that for the moment because we're not really returning anything useful. And at any rate, we might come back to this and return specific error codes that we define ourselves in order to determine what happens there. But now our init function's a lot cleaner. Um, so dungeon tile init. So one thing we can do is actually kind of create a wrapper function for this. Void df set. Let's see. Void df set tile. Just like that. And that ends up allowing us to one line this part. So now we can actually just do df set tile. And that looks a lot better than the other messy implementation that I had. This is what we call a lot cleaner. And it does the exact same thing as it did previously. So we have no loss in functionality. Our code is good. And I'm starting to do stats tracking again on how many lines of code are in the whole project across all .h and .c files. Currently, we're looking at 6688. I'm going to make sure all of our edits and check-ins are very minimal because I get too excited to write too much code at one time and then something breaks. And I keep running into that problem and I'm like, I just got to slow down because when I'm working slower, things work better. It's important not to rush out there, lest you shoot yourself in the foot. Because that'll happen even if you're moving slowly too. Now, it would be fun to figure out a way to like be able to do like intermittent rotating back and forth between tile placements for certain situations. I'm not sure how I would go about implementing that out of the gate, but it's not like a critical thing that we have to do right now. But it would be kind of stylistically nice. So we have these pressure plates that are supposed to work similar to the switch, but I have another mechanic I have to implement before it's really useful. And that mechanic's going to be, well, it's going to be two mechanics. It's going to be box pushing for when we actually have like a box that you might want to be able to push around so we can have like Sokoban style mechanics, as well as I figured before we even get boxes in there, we could even have, because the whole reason I have, one of the whole reasons I have the body of the enemy as well as the player stay on the floor rather than like disappear, is that I want to be able to do similar things to like NetHack, but like as an example, maybe you can push the body around or drag the body from one point to another, and maybe the body is sufficient to like sit on top of a pressure plate to activate it so that you can go through a door that was previously locked or something like that. I think that would be cool. I think other people would think that is cool. That was an example of like the making smaller of this code, right? Like one thing we could actually do right out the gate is change floor to df. Um, I'll be right there, baby. But I figure df as a string would probably be considerably smaller of a token um than the word floor. Uh, I'm leaving these ones commented out because I want to make sure that my assumption about how they work is still going to work. This one got messed up. So this one we actually have to say floor again. Um, no bugs that I can see. Okay, that's good. Let's check that in. All right. This is kind of a thing that I feel like we can optimize. Instead of having a whole variable to check for this, um, if we comment this out, how would it still work, right? Like, because immediately after we break out of the loop, if not success, because this would, like we would break immediately here, we could actually return here instead of having this whole ass if check down here. So one thing we can actually do is just return right away. So like if any of these mallocs fail, it would return. But like this is suspicious. We're actually going to talk to the LLM for this one, or two LLMs, in fact. I've actually got a DeepSeek session open, and this is Claude, I believe, through Copilot. Yeah, we're using 3.5 right now because it's pretty fast. Yeah, see, my concern was with the loop and the memory allocation. If any of those memory allocs fail, like it's gonna break shit, right? So, Claude rewrote everything as a Boolean. So if we fail here, if we fail here, if that fails, it pre-does memset, which is nice actually. So we need a cleanup function. Did they give us that? Yeah. So we could actually copy this over. I'll hold on to it. So our build should fail because we're missing stuff, right? It definitely messed something up here, though. Yeah, if not tile init. So this makes the assumption that tile init returned some sort of error, and it doesn't. So in order to get that working fully, we would also have to update dungeon tile init. As well as dungeon floor set tile. It's given quite a bit. Let's see. We already got that. Tile init over in dungeon tile. This is getting updated to a Boolean. This goes over to but see, it's making some bad assumptions about what we need here. No, see, I feel like we could do it better. Like that bug that we were dealing with. Um, 98. Can we not save this? Oh, dungeon tile. Oop, there we go. Yeah, I feel like we can do this better, Grace. Without having to do all that, right? I think that's better because we take care of the error situation right here, and we didn't have to like rewrite everything. Obviously, things could be better, but I didn't want to, you don't want to have to like re-engineer the entire thing right away just to solve one small problem like that. The LLM does not always know best. It's up to you as the engineer to figure that out. So our init function though looking really nice now. Um, so this could be actually pulled into a function because there's going to be different situations where we want to select different random categories of tiles. As an example, we would want to be able to select like a random floor as well as a random wall. Um, hey, what happened? Oh, you finished? Oh, there you see. Okay. Hmm. What does talented do? Oh yeah, so this makes the assumption that the space for the tile has already been allocated. Because once it has, each tile itself has to malloc. There's a good amount of mallocing, and in the future, we would seek to get rid of all that memory allocating. For instance, dungeon tile max entities default 32. Um, it's really not that much. You got all these memory lookups that have to go on, but is it better to have those in heap memory? Do all of those out mallocs and stuff, or is it better to statically allocate the array, have it fixed so that it doesn't grow, set it to like 256 cap right out the gate, and then whenever we go to add, we just directly add it without having to worry about resize. And then once it hits max, we just reject anything else that might come in. If we were to do that, I'd have to check in code right now and then fork and implement that. But I think it'd be more fun to continue working on actually getting procedural room generation going, right? So okay. instead of doing the random tile selection here, we could move that, right? I was talking about tile categories. Because otherwise, this enum is going to get really big. But we should stick with the system for right now. Dungeon tile type. No, I absolutely refuse to do anything with crypto in this game. I I could see it coming out on VR. In fact, I you know what? I oh shit, that's a fucking amazing idea. I am totally able to borrow a Meta Quest 2 and try playing the game in the fucking VR browser. Like that would be fucking sick cuz it works in the browser now. So it's not that the game has VR, but you could play it in VR if you want to. In fact, the future version of the game that has 3D, that's going to be really sick in VR, I bet. Because one of the things I want to experiment with that is turning the kind of environment into like a voxel environment where we can render the sprites in 3D using the 2D models, or rather the 2D sprites themselves, and just kind of like, essentially assume certain things about like where things would get rendered. But uh as for big data, no. Quantum, no. Internet of Things. It's a small enough game that, hopefully you can play it on your refrigerator. I hope that it's playable on as many devices as possible. One of the things that's going to be a challenge for that in the future is I'm going to have to restructure the way that I'm packing assets. Like, everything is kind of like in their own files right now, and I can envision like creating a packer where we like that way, because I can continue to work using individual files, but then when we go to pack the game, we could take all of those sprites, which are each .png files, and aggregate them into like one super mega PNG file that gets sliced up, in a certain way. Um, that's a bit of extra work, and the only reason I would think to do that is to hope to minimize the the amount of assets or the size of the assets when they sit on disk, because I keep getting warnings whenever I build the oops. I keep getting warnings whenever I build for web that my asset shit is too big. So like if I do make index, this builds the web version, and then it's like, warning, file packager is creating an asset bundle of 295 megabytes. This is very large and browsers might have trouble loading it. Um so yeah, my image folder, which, oh, it's moving in the entire mini fantasy thing. That's why. If I move that up, that would actually fix this. Um, and I have to echo mini fantasy into my, oops, my git ignore. Okay. Let's try that again. I think I may have actually fixed that problem. Oh yeah. Now it's yeah. We're good. Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of images and stuff, but it's still only using 1.1 megabytes. If I used every asset in the mini fantasy pack, yeah, it would be like 290 something or whatever. I don't know how many I'm going to end up using at the end for this first game. I'd like to get as much in as possible, but I also recognize that even having someone having already made all of these graphic assets for me, still have to plug them in myself. Still have to appropriately massage them into their relative context. And I also have to do work slicing out the assets from the asset pack itself, standardizing them and how I present them on my screen, and kind of find like a relationship or a nice harmony between doing things the way that they present them and what feels best for my situation. Sometimes you have to adapt. Where was I going with that? Help me out. Uh oh, right. Yeah. So we fixed that problem. Now back in Dungeon 4 init. Let's say we want to rename this to just DF init. That means that over in Dungeon Floor, we're going to have to rename this here. There's only one place it's being called, but this is part of that whole process of trying to optimize for that LLM, because the word Dungeon Floor is much longer than just DF, right? So like by making your strings smaller, you get faster responses. The LLM's able to analyze your code faster, and everyone wins. So long as you name things appropriately, it shouldn't matter that much. So, not to mention, I have to now make sure that I fix the part of the code that's broken. There we go. So on line 14 of dungeonfloor.c, this is probably the only place that we're actually calling it. That's good. Okay, it builds now. We're still good. Also, I just like this feature. Just like in fucking, this took me like 5 minutes to do. This was so easy. I got a little square box that tells you which direction you're facing. Because one of the problems with the asset pack that the guy, did is that he for all the humanoids, you have 4 directions. You got down left, you got down right, you got up right, and you got up left. And my game has 8 directions. You got left, you got right, or you got left up, you got right, you got upright, right, down, down left, and left. So, but anyone who's played Stardew Valley, maybe this is also a thing in Terraria, is familiar with this kind of little square box thing. It's really red, but like I made it like 50% fade because this is, I don't know what color people are gonna want or stuff like that. That's something we can easily change. We can even make it like green. Let's show you how easy that is. So in libdraw, in I added this function called draw player target box. Over here we've got the color. So let's make it like one, just this bright solid green. Boom. I actually think maybe the five, because currently I'm using the numpad to move around. I wonder if the the 5 key should be used for a wait turn. Actually, one thing I want to do real quick is add in turn counting to begin with. So every time the player moves, when do we actually increment the turn count? When control passes back to the player. I also want to show y'all that I got some shader stuff going too. It actually looks pretty sick, and I'm very excited for the possibilities. Question of where do we use it, when, why, etc. Properly managing them. But I got it working. It wasn't hard. It was much easier than anything I've ever tried in the past trying to raw dog shaders and C using like OpenGL. The interface that Ray has built for Raylib is fucking amazing. I just have to say that much. Shoutouts to Ray. That's why I fucking sponsor, because I'm a big fan of what has been built. I'm a big fan of the community and what they're building. I want to be a part of that. I love the idea of writing games, in pure code. As difficult as it can be at times. I much prefer it to the idea of working in an IDE such as Unity or Unreal, and having to learn those systems, because I get to think in a more abstract and free way, and things can be simplified to writing functions as opposed to having to learn complicated, weird, interfaces and other things, and figuring out other people's shortcuts and having to learn all of these other things. You get to reduce that. So here we go. This is when we actually do the switch over back to player input. based on what the animation state is. So like after the enemies take their turn and all of their states get updated and the animation's complete, it swaps back to the player and it's like, okay, you're ready to make your turn. So this is where we would actually do turn count plus plus. Next, over in liblogic, actually not even in liblogic. For right now, we're going to do it in libdraw because I have a nice little function here that draws or and updates the HUD on every frame. The name HP turn. Uh-oh. Oh, right. We have to rebuild because we added something to a .h file. There we go. In the top left, you can now see the turn count. It will update on every move. Now, one thing about hitting this switch is this did not count as a move, but should it? Is a question. Should flipping this switch count as my turn? Because if it should, then that's a bug and I need to fix that. Otherwise, we can leave this as it is, and hitting switches can be considered a free action. There will be certain things that might be free actions. I don't know what they will be yet, but the concept is there. If anyone's played Dungeons and Dragons as far back as like 3.0, they might have even had it before that. Now, remember earlier I was talking about we need to implement like a turn, right? So I can like turn and face the dude. Um, so like I wonder how we could go about doing that. The turn count works, so we can go ahead and commit that. Okay, back to dungeon floor. Let's tweak this a little bit. So like, because this feels really hard coded. Oh yeah, we only have 3 walls. So actually, Yeah, this needs to be stone floor, my bad. Oh, it's floor stone. Um, you get difference between them, right? In other words, this is like the number of types. And then this would be begin type. And that's a more generic way to do this, right? So we could actually set ranges. And we can even play around with this idea, right? Like, so the assumption, and if it fails, we would have to handle for it, is that if end type is less than begin type, then you fucked up, and we need to do like a hard like exit. Um, and actually, that should come out here. What's one mod 0? Does that safely return 0? Okay, so this will like swap them if they're messed up somehow. Let's try grass. We got 19. We got 19 different types of grass. Hell yeah, look at that shit. Looks like I'm in a grass dungeon now. We still got our pop-up plate. We still got the dungeon tile thingy. And we're dead. That's pretty cool. Um so what other we can do dirt grass. Um we could actually do a range from grass all the way to dirt 8. And that looks ugly as fuck. Oh man. I mean, the code obviously worked, but what we generated here is not aesthetically pleasing. So we're gonna have to be a lot more conservative with the ranges. And now the dirt we need to standardize a bit. Some of those tiles don't look so great in used with the other ones. Dirt grass. Here, let's try water. That's fun. It would have to be num types +1, right? Water. Water world. Fuck yeah. One of the things about us setting down that switch. We're actually doing it in we're doing it in liblogic because we are kind of hard coding in a couple things here just for testing purposes. Like for instance, the pressure plate. We're hard coding the location of it as well as like what it actually does. Um, and the wall switch as well, because we're hard coding in this 777, and when we go down to check to see if something has a wall switch when you try to flip it, um, if it does have a wall switch, it's essentially a binary Boolean flag toggle. So if it's on, it becomes off. If it's off, it becomes on. And it checks to see what the integer event key I'm calling the event wall switch event is on that tile, or if it had a wall switch event. So every tile possibly has a wall switch and a wall switch event, as well as a couple integers representing textures pointing to such a thing. One thing I was talking about earlier is that when I go to actually place that, when I actually go to place the, oh, not libdraw, sorry, liblogic. When I actually go to place the wall switch, same thing with the pressure plate, like it goes either way. when I actually go to place the wall switch, we need to check to see if it's a wall. If it's not a wall, I shouldn't be able to place a switch, right? So as a test of this, let's write a situation where the code doesn't do quite what I want. In this case, we're going to attempt to place a switch on a floor tile. And of course, it's there. And it functionally works. Now I don't know if we want to move it or if I want to get rid of that. If it's a wall switch, it means to be on a wall. That wall switch. That was a slight optimization for code length, but the whole point of us pulling out the tiles, we need to check the type. So if it's not a wall and we attempt to place a tile there or place a switch there, it will reject the placement. So as you can see, we now no longer have a switch at all. Of course, I kind of fail silently when we attempt to do that, and that's fine. And it's back again. So far, so good. So we have a set all tiles function. Now we have a set all tiles range function. Check this out. All right, that looks pretty good. So our init function is now a lot cleaner. But we can do even better than this. Um, the one thing I want to try here too. Set all tile range, set tile perimeter, we're gonna have a set tile perimeter range. tile perimeter range. There's an optimization. Save us 2 extra loops by identifying the loop bodies, or rather, because this one's the same as this one. We're iterating over the same range. So we could just take the body of this loop and move it up here, and we get the same result. Same thing down here. And we can test this out. So here we're hard coding the set tile perimeter, but we can also do set tile perimeter range now. We're gonna have to rebuild because we added stuff to a .h. And look at that. And better yet, we can even do like a range on the base width, or rather minimum width, we'll say is 4. Minimum height is 4. And we'll say the width, actually, we'll do max width. We'll do 16. It may not work with 8. In fact, this will probably break this thing, but let's try it. No, that still worked-ish. Yeah, no, that, I mean, that worked. Now we got a much bigger world that we're working with. Still randomly generating a room size. Uh-oh, the orc's in the same room as with us now. And we have no exit. Oh yeah, I got the orc to kill himself. That's fucking awesome. Yeah, but now I got no way out of the room. That's that's totally fine for right now. Um, for a moment, because we know that the switch and stuff is working, we can comment out crap on. Um, I'm gonna need a way to associate like an event message with each tile as well. So like pressure plate event. Um, I have to think about that one. Okay. Fuck, I gotta piss. What is the font? Oh, uh, Departure Mono Nerd Font Mono. I got it from this Nerd Fonts website when I was reconfiguring stuff the other day. I gotta go piss. Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. Now we messed up because the we accidentally created a wall that blocked us from placing the NPC, but now we got procedurally resizing of the rooms. Um, wait. Set tile area. This function's not working right. Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. Okay. Um, so one of the ideas for procedurally generating dungeon floors is you start off with the grid, right? You have like a 64 by 64 or however big area, and then you set all of the tiles in that area to be like none, like have no tile type. So, in other words, now you have a big zone that you can place stuff in, and from there you can draw a smaller area to be, a dungeon floor room, for instance. So, with this giant space that I'm working with, oh, curious. The this the, oh man, it started slowing down, drawing real bad. 128 might be too big. Oh, it's still too big. It's still too big. Oh no. Wait, we gotta rebuild on that. But I can definitely see a drop in the frame draw, and I don't know if that's because I'm streaming at the same time or not. But I'm not working right with this function. We should have another zone within this space that we're actually like generating. I think it's getting the variable wrong here. Um, Hold on a sec. My dog is crying. Probably can't stay on for too much longer, but something's broken about this function. Something's big time broken with that function. Now, what the ever loving fuck is going on with that function? Yo, what's happening? All right. My dog is upset that I'm eating a donut because I have it on a plastic bag and the bag crinkles. And she, like the other dogs in the house, think that whenever a bag crinkles, it must mean that there's snacks or treats for them in it. I just gave her a bunch. Let's see. We got someone. I got a ban. Um, if they haven't already left, looks like they have disappeared. Hmm. Yeah, this reverses the order. Um, because everything is stored row column. Um, effectively that makes the X the second entry in the grid. So everything, when we're actually storing it is YX. But I created tile at so that it simplified things. But let me get my dog something to ice cream on. Maybe that'll help. One of these little guys. Okay, she's calmed down a bit. Failed to draw a tile. Interesting. Oh wow. Line 380. Why did it fail? Ah. Um. Um. We could actually return true in this case. All right, so now it's not erroring out. That's good. Um, maybe that's why something was failing there. But no, I would still expect this to show up. Uh-oh. So, that straight up failed. That's interesting. Okay, it worked that time. What is trigger? What value is causing the error? Um, Okay. 8 failed. That's curious. Oh, interesting. Um, I'm looking through the log output for the game. See if there's any hints. But this looks like it's corresponding to the Y as opposed to the X. Yeah, that should be that. That should be that. Because then the J corresponds to the X. Okay. Huh. With height 4 0. Wait, what? Okay, 4 4. Right. This should be a height of 8. Okay, that's a height of 8. What we want there. Um, 32. Right. At all tiles. Like if I did 4 4, I would expect it to be slightly down from where, and it's gone. Why the fuck? Is it returning null for that fucking? Oh, this is set. Yeah, set tile area. Oh no 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 no. Oh no no no. Oh yeah, this is a logic thing right here. Um, Y plus H, X plus W. That should fix it. Yes. Okay. That's what we want. Okay. Now if I do this, we should have something like this. Excellent. This is a step towards what we want to do. So you notice I'm able to traverse between these little areas, right? So, and actually, I want to test how big we can make this thing before we experience any slowdown. All right, we're still drawing good at 64. We're still drawing good at 128. So now with this kind of setup, now we have the ability to set like patches of the total map. We can actually start to just like randomly place stuff. So to demo this idea, and mod 12. Um uh-oh. She's finished her ice cream, so we're gonna wrap up here. We're gonna do a little test. It's randomly placed 4 rooms, but 2 of them are like overlapping. And actually, 0 actually gonna be grand mod. Yeah. Huh. Why is that one so much higher? Oh, minus. No. Um, we don't want it to be less than 0. So actually, we want to mod it by that. Yeah, that makes sense. Now they're oh yeah, no, that's like way out there. Um, we wanted to limit the range to like a quarter. They'll appear a lot closer to each other. Um, we obviously need more than 4. Starting to get somewhere. Um, of course, this is all just demo purposes, but this is all in the effort to get things in the right, kind of deal. Because eventually we're going to be setting up start like staircase tiles, just like in NetHack. We're gonna have an upstairs and a downstairs, and on the first floor, player's gonna start on the upstairs tile as if he had just walked into the dungeon. Or better yet, they won't even be stairs. Um, they could be, but then I wouldn't be able to do this cool thing where the player is like, starting in like a dungeon jail or anything like that. I don't know if we're going down into a dungeon, if we're going up for this first one. At the end of the day, I want to be able to support going both up and down as in terms of like getting to the top of a tower versus getting to the bottom of a dungeon and vice versa. Um, hey, that's not bad. Cool. So for this dungeon 4 initialization testing stuff that we're doing, Now we have a nice little compartmentalized area that we can start playing around with stuff in without having to work out this whole function every time that we want to play around with stuff. So we're ultimately going to have a lot of different functions that do the generation. Um, there's still a lot of primitives that need to be built, such as set tile, all tiles range, tile area, um, set tile area range. Set tile perimeter, set tile perimeter range. Um, so in our init test, wait, what? Oh, whoops. Set tile area range. Oh, wait. There we go. Yeah, nice. 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 This is very primitive at the moment, but it's working. Excellent. Excellent. let's say I wanted to do a hard-coded test. We'll move that over a bit. And move it up a couple. Move it over one again. Now we can actually connect it with just a couple more tiles. Okay, so that's placing a wall up there. That's not quite where we want it, but we're close. So now we got a connecting area. And ultimately, we're going to be building algorithms that do all of this kind of thing automatically, not only the placing of the rooms, but the connecting of them as well. This is very rudimentary and experimental at the moment. But, haha, he kills himself. That was cool. So, just for shits and giggles, oh yeah, so the whole reason we did this was like, we're gonna have to make the wiring of the wall switch to the actual trap tile a bit more dynamic in order to integrate it into the procedural generation process. because we know where the wall is, we can just hard code the position. We would have to also have like we need to be able to define something like what the event is that triggers the wall switch. In this case, it would be 777, which is part of one tile, right? And so we'd have to also have a corresponding 777 in another location on the tile that we want to change. And when that event flips, we want to check to see which tile has that event. And then if this event matches that event, be able to program in some other change, such as switching the type of the tile from one thing to another. So so preservative event is like a trigger. Wall switch event is also a trigger. We can have a listen event. In other words, a check for an event. So, for instance, one tile can have wall switch thingy, and then another tile can have a listen thingy. And whenever the wall switch event gets triggered, that would be expensive though, to have to iterate every single tile just to do that. So if we grab the wall switch event and use it as like a hash lookup into some other array, if we store something in that array that can programmatically define what happens on this, right? If we can store in that event the location of the tile that we want to change, see, it would be really convenient be able to do this over here, but the reason that we were doing it in the other area was because we needed a way to manage these events. Because we want to describe what we want to happen on that flip. Well, I mean, we describe it here, but maybe it's the dungeon floor that needs to keep track of these events. Because when this wall switch gets flipped, this happens. And everything we're working with here is stuff that's in the dungeon itself. It's not outside of the dungeon floor. So everything in here could be pulled into dungeon floor. But we need a way to describe these things. Like, we need a dungeon floor event of some sort. So the first thing we're going to have is an index. Then we're going to have a dungeon floor event. That event is going to have on it the int listen event ID. Actually, that's going to be a df event ID as well. In addition to that, we have to describe what happens when this event triggers. We have an X and a Y position. And if we want to do something very simple, like change the tile type at that location, so if we have just four integers, pretty small struct, and we can probably have like a small array, because I'm sure that this structure can be used for other situations as well. Um, Now we have a array. We memset our newly created events. Memset takes a pointer. Guess we don't have to pass the address. That zeroes everything out for sure. Like down here, like that creates that, but then no. But this is essentially what's going to happen. Uh, oh yeah, yeah, that's right. We should call that actually. Oops. On and off type. Okay. So far, so good. Okay, wall switch event. Um, what's the next step here? Let's check the code in first. We need the events listen event ID to be -1. Because when we go to iterate through the events over here in liblogic, actually, we don't even have to iterate. No, that's not what. Wait, oh, yeah, that's right. No, we don't even have an invalid type. Um, and it doesn't have like a type like that anyway. On type and off type. So the event has oh yeah. Wait, no. That'll work if we correctly assign it. Like down here. We're actually just hard storing it for that location. So we can actually grab it just like this. We know it's not -1 anymore. So get the tile type. Oh. Yes. Okay. We got it working. This is marginally a more flexible system because now we can do the creation of these linked tiles, these switches and these spiked traps. Programmatically, because you notice we're passing in 3-4 here. We're also passing in 3-4 up here. We're no longer doing a hard-coded check. We're actually doing this by grabbing an event ID. We're gonna have to be very careful about how we do this going forward, but you know, this system is working. So there you go. Starting to lose steam, so I think this is a good checkpoint. Done a lot today, and we're finally starting to see some frame drops. So let's call it quits. That way I can get my Monster Hunter on and go to bed early tonight. Remember, this is what we got. Progress.